உள்ளதல துள்ள புணர் உள்ளதோ உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளலர உள்ளத்தே உள்ளதா உள்ளமெனும் உள்ள பொருள் உள்ளல் எவன் உள்ளத்தே உள்ளபடி உள்ளதே உள்ளல் உணர்வாயே. Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have been meditating on the verses of Ulladu Narpadu. We are in verse number 39, the penultimate verse of the work. The verse goes like this: பக்தன்னான் என்னும் மட்டே பந்த முக்தி சிந்தனைகள் பக்தனார் என்று தன்னை பார்க்கும் கால் சித்தமாய் நித்த முக்தன் தான் நிற்க நிற்காதே பந்த சிந்தை முக்தி சிந்தை முன்னிற்கு மோ மனதுக்கு. Mumukshutva, or the desire to free oneself from bondage, is a prerequisite to the study of the scriptures, especially the ones that point to liberation, the seeking of liberation. That means understanding of bondage, that we are in bondage. To understand that, to understand the fetters, is one of the prerequisites of a good student, it is said. And Bhagavan here, in one sense, lifts that and makes it sufficient that you have experienced the sorrow of bondage in some form of another, and you want to alleviate that, not full inquiry into bondage, but some sorrow. That's probably why it's called samsara. That was quite an ordinary pun. Know that some sorrow, from where it comes, and you come to Atmavicharam and Bhagavan, that is enough, says Bhagavan. But let us go into what Bhagavan is relieving us of. Let us see once again the incidents that lead Professor K. Swaminathan to come to Bhagavan. Professor Swaminathan says he was a professor then of English. He must not have yet risen to the position of principal, because we hear that Bhagavan later exclaims, seeing in the paper that he has been elevated. So before coming to Bhagavan, he might not have risen to that post, but he was professor of English, and he knows about Bhagavan. He knows that Bhagavan teaches Atmavicharam, but then he compares Bhagavan with Gandhiji, or that's what he says, that in the video that's available even today, he says, I used to think Gandhiji is doing so much, and this person is sitting here, and so I did not go. But then three incidents in his life make him go to Bhagavan. The first incident he says is that the play of bondage, the play of ahankar. Imagine, this is happening in the 30s. That a nephew or a niece who is married to a very good person, the couple, both of them are very good people, he says. But their egos or whatever happens, they decide to separate. Divorce in those days was so rare that if we try to join people who are trying to separate, then they must have tried. Professor Swaminathan must have tried his utmost. He says, though he tried his utmost, they couldn't be rejoined. And that was a terrible sorrow for him. How can this happen? With two good people, all they have to do is get along. This Pongal Patti Mandapam was about that, I think. That Patti Mandram was about that, whether in one of the television channels, whether the marriages of today and the ladies of today, or the marriages of yesteryears and the ladies of yesteryears, they had happy homes. That was the title for the Patti Mandram. But then the play of bondage, the play of how tied we are, that we cannot see the perspective of another. And a good person, in the view of Swaminathan sir, who is already an experienced man, who is thinking in terms of what is Gandhiji is doing, what is Bhagavan doing, with such an experienced man, and he is saying both of them were good people. But the ego, the bondage to our way of thinking, what the ego does, it does not have another view at all. I am the only right person. My way of thinking is the right way. And that is bondage. One of the bondages which we will try and see. And the couple are separated, and by his own attempts to renew that relationship, he gets into terrible sorrow. Professor Swaminathan sir, what is all this? We have seen that the biographer of Bhagavan, B.V. Narasimha Swami, undergoes even greater sorrow. He has loss of children. Though he is very wealthy, very well recognized, and a famous lawyer, there is this loss of children which he is unable to fathom. That pushes him into spiritual inquiry. And I think it is Dara Bhendre who sings Nining Noda Beda Nanna, where in those days the child mortality was so high that the wife is looking at the husband as the child is breathing its last, and the husband is unable to do anything, is helpless. And the wife is looking up to him. Are you not the husband, the protector? What are you doing about this? And he sings, don't look at me like that. I am quite helpless here. That is one of the incidents, that a very nice couple, they separate in those days. And the second incident is more positive, that he decides to learn the Brahma Sutras, which is one of the Prasthanatrayis, the Bhagavad Gita, Vedanta, that is the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita and the Brahma Sutras form the Prasthanatrayi. He decides to learn, and in his summer holidays he comes to Bangalore. And obviously, there would be only talk of what is bondage, what is travel, what is mumukshutva, what is liberation. All these are discussed in that. And the teacher, to top it all, at the end of his teachings, he says, the essence of Brahma Sutras is sitting in Tiruvannamalai as Ramana Maharshi, he says. So, second blow to his not deciding to go and visit Bhagavan. Third blow comes from his own profession. An English poet he comes and he says he has had the heart kindled in Bhagavan's presence. Grand duff. And he asks when he meets Swaminathan, have you not met Ramana Maharshi? And elsewhere, Grand Duff writes, those who are living in the lifetime of Bhagavan in India and have not met him are really great losers. He has written elsewhere. So obviously, his words must have been tinged with that feeling when he asked Professor, have you not seen Ramana Maharshi? And he says that was the final blow, and he decides to go and see Bhagavan. His teacher, Brahma Sutra Bhashya teacher, he has said that going to Bhagavan is like looking into the depths of Doddabetta, that you may lose your hold, you may lose your stability and follower, that Bhagavan is so deep. So better tie yourself with 3 bondages and go. And Professor says, I tied myself with my wife, one of my previous students and one current student, so that those bondages kept me steady. But then later, much later, he says, I realized that Bhagavan doesn't ask us to separate ourselves from any physical situation, but only he brings the same relationship into a totally different light, into that light of the Supreme Being. But something of that later. The point is how the bondage manifests itself to us, to each one of us. We feel everything is fine, but then the most trusted one in the world, they decide to turn their face. The most assured project crumbles. All these things happen. What is this bondage? And in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verses 1 and 2, Sri Krishna describes this bondage, that the whole world is bondage. The whole world is like a Ashwatha tree, he says. Tha means steady. Shwa, they say, is tomorrow. A means even tomorrow it is not steady, that it is not going to remain the same. Even by tomorrow it is going to change. Not even tomorrow, every moment it is changing. So in verses 1 and 2 of chapter 15, the bondage is described. What is this bondage? If we look at it a little bit, we can easily understand that if we are unable to do something and we are tied up, we don't have the freedom, we are helpless. In that situation, we can say we are bound. We are bound to something. And I had shared with you one incident where a pastor, he is addressing a whole huge gathering of rich people, in the sense it's happening in US. So it's a huge hall, maybe 3,000 people are seated. It's all conditioned, air conditioned and all that. And he is addressing the gathering. He says, all of you are happy. All of you have water and other things around you. Everything is They are all raising. They have this method of saying, put up your hands and say hi or yes. And they all say that they are all happy. He says, all this is going to be assured, that you are going to be in a comfortable place with food, water, and everything provided. But now I am going to say, for the next 1 week, I am going to close all the doors of this hall and none of us can go out. Then he asks, how many of you are happy now? And none of them raise their hands. Till then they were thinking that having these things, the nice chair, the water and other things, is what is making them happy. But when that which is taken for granted is pointed out and blocked, then they realize it is, unless these are happening in a sense of freedom, none of them are worth having. Now, the point is that the situation changed completely adversely and they could not do anything about it. And that is what Sri Krishna says in those verses 1 and 2, that this Ashwatha tree, the branches, the leaves, everything is changing. He says, by next day, we can take every moment. And why change should be a problem? Why change should be a trouble, a misery? Because this change that is happening cannot be foreseen. If you know tomorrow is going to be like this, the uncertainty of it, that we don't know what is going to happen, and having taken it for granted all these days, that brings the hollow in the stomach, that how is it that I have not inquired into this at all? And it is changing, it is all changing. And Sri Krishna says, how does that become a karmic cycle for me, a cycle of bondage? He says the senses come in contact with the sensory objects. And if it is something that I like, I feel it is going to bring pleasure. If it is something that I don't like, that sensory contact, I feel it is going to bring pain and I am averse of it. So there is raga and dvesha that come up. So the raga and dvesha, which are reactions to the sensory contact, they develop actions. And where does that action take place? Once again in the sensory area. So the contact, the liking and disliking, the seeking of pleasure and aversion to pain, the raga, dvesha, and then leading to action. Then once again, where is action taking place? In the sensory area. So it is a karmic cycle of bondage that takes place. Now, where does it start? Where does it end? There are some indications, but as in the theory of karma that we saw last, Vinay Mudal Nama in Vilaypayan Tuipom, here too, the explanations are not perfect. The explanations need a lot of clarifications. The video that I was seeing was from Chinmaya Mission, and the pontiff or the person giving the talk was from the Chinmaya Mission Mangalore. There was a 3-talk series on bondage and liberation. Some questions at the end of the talks, really they are unanswerable, because where does it really start? The cycle start, nobody can answer. Bhagavan solves that riddle for us, that where does karma cycle start, where does bondage start. Bhagavan removes the problem for us in an easy way. But before going to Bhagavan's solution, let us see how Bhagavan looks at bondage. Because in those 2 verses, it is all self-created, it is said, and self can remove by various methods that are suggested. All the paths that are there, the Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, the Jnana Yoga, All those are paths to free oneself from bondage. But then let's see, how does Bhagavan look at bondage first? To what extent is there bondage? Because unless we look at bondage, we will not seek liberation. That is what is the understanding. Unless someone is in the pain of bondage or seen bondage clearly, one will not seek liberation. And that should be clear. Unless somebody is hungry, we don't go in search of food. Unless somebody is thirsty, we don't run for water. Now, Bhagavan's description of bondage, the teachings that Bhagavan gives to Amma, that was quoted by Akka the weeks before, that our prapta prakaram adarkanavan ஆங்காங்கு இருந்து ஆட்டுவிப்பன் என்றும் நடவாதது என் முயற்சிக்குனும் நடவாது நடப்பது என் தடை செய்யினும் நில்லாது இதுவே திண்ணம். திண்ணம் is a double word, absolutely certain. ஆதலின் மௌனமாய் இருக்கை நன்று. The best course of action for the bound being is to remain quiet, remain silent. Because what is the extent of bondage we are having? That Ishvara is releasing thoughts to all the beings, all the individual lives, remaining within them. That means remaining at a depth where they cannot approach. Right now, the thoughts I am sharing are coming from there only. Only the thoughts he gives, we can share. That is what Bhagavan is saying. It is as an individual, it is the praptam of mind to share these words. That Ishvara is staying within, that there is connection, that there is audio clarity, that is getting through. All this is possible only because Ishvara is within everything and is making it work. Exactly the same word, exactly the same satisfaction or dissatisfaction that I may feel in sharing, everything is released by Ishvara. Only that can happen. Nothing else can happen. So what is the extent of bondage Bhagavan is saying? We are bound without even the rope that a cow has. According to, if you understand this, if one understands this, that the bondage that we have, that the very thought, last week we had seen that if instead of this Bhagavan had given that thought, I would have acted differently. So to that extent, where once Devraj Mudaliar asks Bhagavan that, oh Bhagavan, this is there in the reminiscences. He is a great devotee of Bhagavan. He says Bhagavan is his mother and father. He asks Bhagavan, oh Bhagavan, the parents to whom I am born, the education that I have to take, my place of work, to whom I get married, who are my children, what is my date of death, all this is as per praptam. I clearly understand that. But it is summer and they are holding the handheld fans. And he keeps that fan in his hand, he keeps it down. And he says, oh Bhagavan, I have kept the fan down. Is this also scripted by somebody? Is this also scripted by someone? Bhagavan says, certainly. The moment a body is created, whatever it has to do and whatever it has to experience or enjoy have already been decided. Then Devraj Mudaliar says, then what is the freedom? What is the freedom of the jiva then? To inquire for whom is all this bondage? the fixed acts, from which you cannot say I will do, you cannot say I will not do. I cannot say I will not speak now. That means internally, even if I say I cannot speak now, that is also fixed. Is the meaning of that. That is the extent of bondage. Bhagavan is saying it is there. As far as we are the jiva trapped inside a body, that is the extent of bondage. That whatever I have to do, whatever I have to experience, and we have investigated, doing and enjoying, the only difference is the force with which the jiva is going out. In, like, I am speaking, and let us say you are all listening. The speaking we usually say is doing. Listening we say is enjoying or suffering. It could be either in such a talk. But that is fixed. That is fixed, says Bhagavan. Whatever a body has to do, whatever it has to enjoy, is fixed at the time of creation of the body. The only freedom you have is to inquire into who is the bound one and get jnana. What is the duty? What is the freedom? Or what is the right we have? The right we have is only to get jnana. What is the duty? Here duty and the right become one. In Constitution of India, you will have rights of citizens separately, duties of citizens separately. But here in the overall Constitution, there is only one. The right as well as duty is only to either surrender unconditionally, which is the same as jnana, or inquire for whom is this baddha. So where does Bhagavan ties up the whole area of baddha as absolute. It is totally under the power of that one. In fact, he says it is under the sannidhi of Ishvara that all this is happening. Now, having tied up baddha to that extent, how does Bhagavan relieve us? If we are so bound, that means the karma marga, you have a right to do work. No. If we understand Bhagavan's statement that our prartha prakaram adarkanavan angangirundu aattivippan, do I have a right to do this talk now? No. It is Ishvara's ajna. There is no way I can say yes. There is no way I can say no to this. That is Bhagavan's statement. That means that is out of the window. To say that I have a right to do the work but not the results thereof. No. I will offer all the pujas, the actions to the deity. Bhagavan says that is like pinching from the jaggery doll, jaggery image of Ganesha, some jaggery from that image itself, and offering it to Ganesha. That means that is also gone out of the window. He first removes all that. That means if his definition of baddha is properly understood, then all that you are bound to do anyway. Then what is the way out? The way out, whether you understand Bhagavan's earlier statement on Ishvara or not, the way out Bhagavan gives very clearly. Bhattan na ennum matte bandha mukti sindanaigal. Bhattan na ennum matte bandha mukti sindanaigal. I was telling my mother downstairs just before coming up. Only if I think I am this bound son serving his mother of this janma and mother of many janmas, my mother-in-law, along with the help of the attendant. Only if I think like that, then a thought may come, oh, I could have been in Tiruvannamalai. Whereas Bhagavan is saying that Bhattan nan ennum matte bandhamundi sindanegal. That I am so bound, tied hand and feet and everything. to this body and hence to this house and Bangalore and to the relationships that are there. Because what are the bondages that we have? As far as the body is concerned, the scriptures say we are helpless so far as illness is concerned. We are helpless so far as old age is concerned. We are helpless so far as death is concerned. This, wherever we are helpless to do anything, understand we have been tied hand, feet and everything. So that is bodily bondage. What about mind? We cannot say when we will get angry. We cannot say when we will feel jealous, anger, jealous, greed, hatred. We understand these cause great trouble. These are totally causing illness. Like there has been an experiment just forwarded by somebody. They say anybody can experiment this at home. So those who are interested can try. 3 seeds of plants they have planted in pots. And one is, they say, the control seed. Control is in research where a neutral group is kept, where neither positive nor negative impacts are given. Like that, there is a control plant to which neither positive words are told nor negative words are told. Then there is a plant to which they keep cursing from morning till evening or whatever time they give. And to the other plant, they give all the positive statements and statements of love. And they find that the plant which has been talked ill to, it withers, it is stunted, its leaves are downward turned. And the plant to whom loving words, positive words have been spoken is growing so well and so fast. So that experiment is there. That means, but do we have control? Do we have control over this ability that do we understand that while being angry with another, you are giving it first to your own spirit in the form of thought. And what kind of control do you have? Some trigger comes in some place, some object of not liking comes up. So what are the bondages of the mind? The bondages of the mind are fear, anxiety, hatred, jealousy, anger, all these coming up totally unplanned and unwanted and being separated from all the positives. We love, we are positive about certain things and we really want to achieve certain things. But the Ashwatha tree keeps us apart from that. To be separated from that which you love is sorrow. So what is Baddha? What is bondage of the mind? All these negative thoughts, negative emotions coming up uncontrollably, to which we are helplessly bound. You see somebody whom immediately, and how deep they are. One of the devotees of Bhagavan says, he feels he has surrendered unconditionally. I have surrendered, that is his sadhana he feels, now I have reached. And that is his thought in Girivalam. And right at that moment, a leper with nose driven inward, all the fingers in the hand disfigured, that leper comes and begs near him, and immediately there is an aversion, deep aversion, and he realizes he is not free, he is not unconditionally surrendered. And something happens divine there, that figure itself turns into Bhagavan or a great man, a sage, and it vanishes also. But it was to teach me that I still have bondage. The imagination that I am free was not true. And that was for a deep sadhaka. So those are the bondages of the mind. What is the bondage of the intellect? The bondage of the intellect is not knowing, ignorance. That you would love to know, especially coming to Bhagavan about bondage and liberation, you would love to know. But are we aware of the extent to which we are bound? What we feel we have done? Have we really done what we feel we have achieved? Have we really achieved? And that was seen in the previous verse that Vinay mudal yaar endru vinavi tanayariya kartarutvam poi. One of the roots of bondages is kartarutva. The doership, that I am the doer, that goes only when you inquire. Who is the doer? Here, doership and all forms of bondage are removed, Bhagavan says, by this enquiry. Battannan ennumatte bandhamukti sindanegal. That so and so, they unfairly separated, got separated. They unfairly got separated. It arises because of our doership. How so? How is somebody separating? It is arising out of our doership. We had shared that in the last session that if we feel any one jiva has doership, then we have doership. That means to drop our doership, we should understand non-doership is universal. The non-doership is, unless you universalize that, it is not yours. Unless you forgive everybody, you cannot forgive yourself completely, says one of the religions. Unless you understand that God alone is the single doer and that no being has any kind of doership, then alone you are free of do. That is the words that kartarutvam poi happens only then. Here, Battan nan ennum matte bandha mukti sindanegal, that I am bound. And earlier, Bhagavan has beautifully opened up that bondage to us. Nam udambel naal naatul naam padu. Nam udambel naal naatul naam padu. Nam udambo. நாம் இன்று அன்று என்றும் ஒன்று நாடு இங்கு அங்கு எங்கும் ஒன்று நாம் உண்டு நாள் நாடில். So the bondages are not merely of the individuals. The collective bondages that we have of duality, of good and bad, all the dualities of knowledge and ignorance, all the multiplicities that they speak, all past, present, future bondages, the bondages of the vidhi and madhi, all this we are subject to. Now, how to get rid of this or how to come out of this? Battan nam ennum matte bandha mukti sindanegal. The thoughts of bondage, I am bound to this chair in front of mother, and I could have been in Tiruvannamalai before Bhagavan Sannidhi. That thought comes only if I don't inquire. But the moment I inquire, for whom is this thought? For whom is this thought that I am a bound one sitting in front of my mother? This thought is for me. Who am I? When we still the eye, Battanar endru thannai paarkum kaal siddhamai. Siddhamai means that still eye is always there. The still eye is ever present. In fact, on the still eye only, all other constructs are there. All dyads, triads, all appear and disappear on the still eye. Siddhamai, ever available, ever ready, ever present. What is ever present? The still eye. Siddhamai, Nitya Muktan Tan Nirka. Nitya Muktan. The time itself is dependent on the still eye. But for our sake, the Nitya, the ever-present word is used. The ever-liberated one. Who is the ever-liberated one? The be still and know that I am God. The still I is God. Nittamuktan tan nirka. The same nirkum nan is the same which Bhagavan says, Kandavan yavanana karuthin ulnada Kandavan indrida ninrada kanden. Kandanan indrida karuthu elavillai. Kandilan indrida karuthu elumar. Like that, what Bhagavan asked, that is the still I which is present in each one of us, which we miss and come into bondage. And Bhagavan says, all one has to do is, for whom is this bondage? Bhaktan yar, endru tannai paarkum kaal, siddhamai, ever present, ever ready, self-luminous, is the Nitya Muktan, the still I, the I that doesn't move. The moving I is Jiva, the still I is Ishvara. The still I, which holds itself as independent and remains quiet, has no division as Ishvara, Jiva and Jagat. So the term Ishvara also becomes redundant, that because only Ishvara is there. It is not redundant because it is not there. It is because only Bhagavan is there. Sadhuvam Swamigal famously is known to have said, when someone says, now that your Bhagavan has obtained Nirvana and he has dropped, he has gone away, what are you going to do? He is dead now. And Sadhuvam Swamigal is said to have replied, Bhagavan is the only one who is alive. We are all dead. We are all not there. He is the Sadvastu. If we consider ourselves apart from him, we are not there. So the still I, which is Ramana, which is our Swarupa, is the only one that is there. Nitya Muktam Tan Nirka. Nirkade Bandasinde. Where is the thought that I am sitting in the chair in front of my mother? That drops. Nirkade Bandasinde. That I am the bound one, tied hand and feet. All have conspired and put me here. All on top of that, that Ramaneshwara has conspired and he has placed me here. I am tied hand and feet, cannot move. How many people are living in Tiruvannamalai? How blessed they are to be in front of Bhagavan and sitting there. And all these thoughts are thoughts of bondage. Bhaktan yar endru tannai paarkum kaal, siddhamai, nitta muktan taan nirka. Nirkade bandha sindai. The sindai that I am the one sitting in this chair talking to people. He is not there. Nirkade bandha sindai. Oh, I could have been doing something better. As though I am a great person, that some better opportunity could have been availed if I feel. That thought, how it can be there when I don't have the thought that I am the one doing this particular work, when that is not there? Where is the question of feeling that I will reach point B, where I will be free of work? No, the ever free, the ever ready, the ever present, the ever self-luminous self, the self-attentive self alone is there. There is no bandha sindai, there is no thought of bondage. Therefore, there is no thought of liberation. Munnirkumo. The liberation is said to be a goal. Bondage being seen as a reality, which itself we don't see. That bondage is the reality in samsara. Unless we make deliberate inquiry, we don't see. At least when some problem is there, we should start the inquiry. At least when something has got struck and as a team we are facing some trouble which seems to be very difficult to solve, at least that time we should inquire that all the things I said I have done, have I really done? Or am I just like the cyanobacteria? The cyanobacteria which lived for 15 days, doing the only job of breathing in carbon dioxide and letting out oxygen 1.5 billion years it has done this, and it has filled the earth with oxygen required. It has created the ozone layer, but created by a power apart from it, and it was merely a bound being. Did it know that it was going to create all this? It was merely living like that. Are we also similarly bound hand and feet, part and parcel of a whole mechanism in which we are totally bound? And this bondage is sorrow, because it is all changing. It is the Ashwatha tree, says, and how it is fed? It is fed by our own vasanas. You feel that this particular area you like, you spend 20 years in that. After 20 years, you find all your circumstances just a manifestation of that one desire. The cricketer finds all his company to be cricket lovers, the cricket knowing people. A person who gets into criminal activity finds that one thought he has worked. He creates the world of that criminal world around him. It is said that this is the kind of bondage. We don't know, and we get trapped in a world which the thoughts create. And Bhagavan says, the thoughts, if you understand, the thoughts are the ones creating bondage. You can either think that this is my mother, or you can inquire that what is within my mother is also within me, and I can know that in self-attention. Who is the bound one? When I inquire, is mother the bound one? Is she the one trapped inside that 87-year-old body which is unable to get up from the bed, which is managing with some pranayama, which is now not complaining about anything but still undergoing severe suffering? Is she that consciousness that is trapped in that body? Am I this consciousness trapped and sitting in front of her? Bhagavan is asking, you inquire, for whom is this thought? That I am this consciousness trapped in this 60-year-old body, facing a consciousness trapped in an 87-year-old body, suffering more or less. For whom is this thought? Who am I? The still I is me. In the still I, mother is the still I. Where is Bhagavan? Bhagavan is not somewhere. After reaching whom we will get liberation. Bhagavan is right here. The still I is Bhagavan. That is why Bhagavan says Upadesha means bringing that which appears to be very far, bringing it very near and showing that it is not even near. That itself is you. Your another name is liberation. You are already liberated. Siddhamai Nitya Muktan. You are the Siddhamai Ulla Nitya Muktan. You are not the Jiva trapped inside the body. You are the still I. And so is everything else. There is only the still I. There is nothing else. Nasate vidyato bhavo, na bhavo vidyate satah. That which is never becomes non-existent. That which is non-existent, never call it as existent. That the separate beings are there and many trapped in different degrees of bondage doesn't exist. Only the self-attentive I is there. Siddhamai Nitya Muktan Ta Nirka. Nirkade Bandhasi. Nirkade Bandhasi means I am free. My mother is bound. No. The other 7 billion people are bound. No. No, still I can say that. The still I indicates that our nature is only this. Whether we know it or not, we are all the Siddhamai Ulla Nitya Muktan. And that is what we practice in Atmavicharam for the next 10 minutes till 8 o'clock. Let us sit in practicing the Siddhamai Ulla Nitya Muktan by inquiring who am I. Ujjwalji will help us out.
Yes, Uncle, I know that.
After that practice, we can listen to our Akka. We'll sit and practice till 8 o'clock.
Radhate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramana. Prostrations to Ramana, shining is the self in all beings. By the immense grace of the self manifested as Ramana, we are meditating on Ulladu Narpadu and we have come up to the penultimate verse of Ulladu Narpadu, such extraordinary grace. And here Bhagavan is bringing the whole condition, our whole condition, into one absolute one capsule. There are so many approaches to this condition, but the essence of it is bondage, as it has been beautifully pointed out to us today. But one new angle or perspective or the highlight which was done, one of the aspects that was highlighted today for us was, unless we feel the suffering from the bondage, we will not have the eagerness to come out of the bondage. Unless there is some suffering. This Bhagavan has been asked in one place, why should there be suffering in this dream, in this illusion of identity? Why should there be any suffering at all? And Bhagavan has given different answers to this question, but one of the answers I recall is that if the dream is sweet, who will want to wake up? So the suffering which is felt in the form of the bondage that is felt, the slavery that is felt, makes one long for freedom. This bondage, the suffering from the bondage, need not be actually physical, it need not be something which is gross, it can be a subtle suffering also, just the weight of the thoughts in the mind themselves, as it is again brought home to us today. It can be mental also. It need not be that the situation of suffering is brought to us. But more often than not, we find that those seeking freedom are actually seeking freedom from suffering of one kind or the other, which is binding, and which, as from the example of the Ashwatha tree, which is also repetitive. This suffering that we undergo is repetitive. So, the point is that we want to be free. And again, Nandakumarji highlighted that in the Shastras, mumukshutva is considered to be a very important qualification. The longing for freedom is considered to be a very important qualification in the search for freedom, in the search for truth, in the seeking of liberation. But Bhagavan is telling us here that in one sense he says, even this thought of freedom, of needing to be free, is based on or springing from the very same identity who is bound. It is only the one who is bound who is asking for freedom. So find out who is bound. Is there one who is bound? So Bhagavan is taking us to a different, totally new perspective to the problem of bondage and liberation. He's saying we may keep trying to become free, but who is the one who is bound in the first place? Because that is the subtle point to which self-inquiry takes us, the subtlest point, where even the need for liberation is questioned by questioning who is it who is bound? Is the one who is bound a real entity? Is the bondage itself a reality? That is the question which will arise when one asks who is but then are? Who is the one who is bound? I often have shared an interesting or light-hearted story where a man is leading a few donkeys, say 20 donkeys, from one town to another. In those days, maybe 20, maybe 50, maybe 100, they used to take donkeys and horses and cattle from one town to another to sell them in the shandy. And this man was taking so many donkeys with him. And at the night, because this travel would be long, they would walk along the whole day. Evening, they would settle down in some chatram, as it was called. There will be a big courtyard where they will tie all these donkeys and the cattle and all that. So this man was doing something similar. And night came, he came to an inn and he was going for his night rest and he tied all the donkeys, began to tie all of them. But he was short of rope for one donkey. He was short of rope just for one donkey and he hunted everywhere, but everyone needs to tie their cattle. So there was no extra rope available with anyone. And he was very worried because he was too tired to sit the whole night watching over his donkey. He could not afford to lose that because it may stray off anywhere. So what to do? At that time, a wise passerby told him, just pretend that you have tied this donkey. So he said, okay, I will pretend, because he was too tired to keep awake any longer. He pretended that he tied that donkey and he went for his night rest. Morning he came back, he saw all the donkeys were there, including the one that was not actually tied, but he had pretended to tie it. So he untied the other 19 donkeys and began to walk with them. He began to prod them and all to move, and they all moved, but this 20th donkey would not move. No matter what he did, how he tried to move it, how he tried to cajole it to move, it was not moving from its spot. So the same wise person came by and said, sir, what are you trying to do now? No, this donkey is not moving. So he told him, you pretended to tie it and it has felt bound. That is why it is standing there. Otherwise, it would have walked off in the night. Now, should you not pretend to untie it? So the whole bondage was in the mind of the donkey, but it was real. So long as it felt bound, the moment he pretended to untie it, it started walking along with the other donkeys. So that is how the mind is. There is an illusion of bondage, says Bhagavan. And until that illusion of bondage is there, the need to ask, but then are. The need to inquire is there. But once that is done, what happens? Bandha mukti atitam param sukham. It is this, the self is beyond bondage and liberation. So Bhagavan says even this exalted desire for liberation, the most exalted desire it is called. It is called the best desire. Everyone on this path is told in the traditional way, if you go the traditional way, they will say, build up the desire for liberation. You must have so much longing for liberation. Sri Ramakrishna says, if you are having such a great longing to see God, as a man who is held under the river, forcibly if his head is put under the river, how much he will struggle for breath. That much if you are struggling for God, then you will see God immediately. So such a great longing for liberation is called upon. Mukti Chintanai, that great Mukti Chintanai has to be there. And if that is not there at all, again, one of the people asked Bhagavan, if I do not have any problem with my present existence, then why should I do self-inquiry? Why should I strive for liberation? Bhagavan said, no need. If you do not have, and he has also said, if you do not care for your own liberation, nobody else is eager to hand it over to you on a platter. These are all statements which Bhagavan has made in different contexts, that there should be keenness to attain liberation. Again, Sri Ramakrishna, if we see, he gives the example of a fisherman. When he catches, when he nets the fish, large number of fish will be netted. And a lot of mud and soil apparently would also come into the net along with the fish. A lot of mud and soil will come. A lot of that will be there, and Sri Ramakrishna says there will be some fish which are seeking to jump out of the net. They will be constantly struggling. They will be jumping up into the air, hoping that they can cross the net and go to the other side. They will keep doing that. And some of them will actually manage to get back. And he says there will be other fish who will burrow deep into the mud in the net. Burrow deep into the mud in the net, thinking, here in the mud, we are very safe. So many examples were given today to show us the need for transcending the bondage. But what is the best means given by Bhagavan is the means of self-inquiry. Why? Because even that vestige of identity, even that identity which says, I have longing for liberation, I am a seeker of liberation, even that vestige of identity is not allowed by Bhagavan. In other contexts, he has said, even the desire for liberation can take you through many births. He gives us the example of Chudala and Shikidwaja, where the king Shikidwaja, in his eagerness to attain the highest state, does years of penance and is ready to make every sacrifice. But finally, his self-realized Jivan Mukta wife Chudala, in disguise, points out to him that all that was needed was to inquire into the nature of the bondage, or rather the one who is feeling bound, and thereby for that entity to get dissolved. So Bhagavan says here, if this is the treatment, this is the cure that he is giving us, or the path to transcend even that greatest desire for liberation, then surely that is to be applied for all our little desires, if any. We must remember, of course, that there is no true happiness in anything. Even in any one of our thoughts, there is no happiness. Because that is what has been pointed out to us. It is, in fact, thought is sorrow, says Bhagavan. Thought is sorrow. Thought itself is sorrow. Why? Because it keeps us from the fullness of bliss, which is our own nature. And that is the case. The longing to get back to that is a very beautiful longing. And that longing also, Bhagavan is asking us finally to put that also into the fire of self-inquiry. Let that also get consumed. Badhanar, who is the one who is bound? Then there is the Nitya Muktan, There is a Nitya Muktan. There is neither liberation nor bondage. In a similar verse, Bhagavan says in Ashtakam, I did not have the thought that I saw. Then where can I have the thought I did not see? Kandanan endida karuthezhavillai, kandiran endida karuthezhumaran. So there is neither thought of bondage nor liberation in the true freedom. There is no thought. There is no identification. There is no, not even the subtle identity of the seeker of liberation. Even that Bhagavan wants us to allow to be consumed in the grace of self-inquiry. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramana.
Namo Ramanaka.
Namo Ramana.
Ramananjali, Ramananjali, Ramananjali.